Thank you, Claire. I'm Adam Braver, and I'm going to get us going. I want to just start by saying that Johar Ilham first visited our campus in 2015, following a connection forged by work done through the students in the advocacy seminars on behalf of her father, as well as through the work and personal connection that she and I shared over that time. At the time, her father, Ilham Tohti, had been given an unprecedented life sentence by the Chinese authorities for his peaceful work as a moderate voice trying to create dialogue between Uyghurs and Han. Johar visited the campus again in 2019. By then, during those in-between 4 years, so much had changed. 2 years prior, in 2017, the so-called re-education camps had become a reality in the Uyghur region of China. And by then, scholars and intellectuals such as Rahila Dahoud, Akida's mother, were disappearing. Too soon, the story ballooned from being one of selectively targeted individuals into one of an attack on an entire culture. Well over 1 million, all individuals. And to help us understand the experience of what it means to witness this and to advocate for change and for their parents, we welcome Johar and Akida, daughters of Ilham Tohti and Rahila Dahoud. I'm going to start off with a few questions for Johar and Akida, and then we'll open it up for questions in the Q&A section here. So I encourage everybody to type in questions. I'm sure the conversation will be more interesting with everybody than with just me and Johar and Akida, or at least just me. We'll get going. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. So the first thing I want to ask both of you is to just tell us about your parents a little bit. Tell us, who Johar, who your father was, Akida, who your mother was. Help us get to know them a little bit.
Akida, would you like to start first?
Sure. My mother, Rahila Dawood, she born in an intellectual family. She is a professor at Xinjiang universities. In 1998, she was one of the few Uyghur women to earn PhD degrees at Beijing Normal Universities. She is also visiting scholars at foreign institutions such as the Indiana University, University of Washington, University of California, Berkeley. The work she has done also received award from China Ministry of Cultures. After I said all about her work, you might imagine my mother as a workaholic or who devoted all of her time or energy to works, but it's more than that. She also except for her busy schedule, aside from her busy work, all of the accomplishment she achieved in her field, she is also a very responsible mother, daughter, and a wife. She also, except her busy work schedule, she never forgot to make a nutritious and delicious breakfast for me and my father. Every time when my grandparents and her mother-in-law or father-in-law had any health issue, she would take them to the hospital and took care of them all days. All of her friends, all of her colleagues, all of her students love my mother because she has such a wonderful personality. She is open-minded, accepted any differences, accepted any the cultural differences, and she is so helpful whenever her students or friends needed help. She would be there for them. So that's why after her disappearances, all of the people who knows her devastated because the world not only lost an excellent, a successful scholar, but lost a wonderful person. As a daughter perspectives, I grew up with my mother's, and as a daughter perspectives, I got many inspirations from my mother's. I witnessed how uh, how a how a person with such a busy work schedule can still enjoy life. I witness, I witness, I witness how a person's with a certain cultural backgrounds can grow up with somebody that can be open-minded and accepted any any culture from any different groups. I When I was a child, I decided to become someone like my mother. So her loss is such a devastating thing for me, but also inspire me, encourage me to become an activist and speak up for her. I would love to. Right now, I just wanted to tell you who my mother is, and later on, I can talk more about my mother disappearances and why she was detained by the Chinese government. But I would love to give this opportunity to the jailhouse to introduce her father.
Thank you, Aqida. Hello, everyone. My name is Jawhar Ilham. I am the daughter of jailed scholar Ilham Tohti. Some of you may be familiar with this name. Some of you might not know. My father was a well-known economist in China. Uh, he was a professor at Minzu University in Beijing. Though an economist by training, but he was best known in China as an outspoken advocate for Uyghur rights and also peaceful coexistence between the Uyghur people and the majority Han Chinese. In around 2006, he, in order to for his way of promoting interethnic understanding, he also co-founded the website UighurBiz.com. It was a platform that he wanted to provide for people to communicate with each other freely, since social media accounts like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and searching engines like Google are all banned in China. He wanted to create a free, non-blocked platform for people to be able to communicate with each other freely. And besides creating the website, he also constantly expresses his opinions and his views on his social media accounts, his social media platforms, and with the journalists. And he published op-eds, articles, and regarding on the Uyghur and Han Chinese issues. He also, throughout his years of studies and researches, he realized that there are lots of socio-economical issues in the Uyghur region. And he would like to, my father is a fixer. When he sees a problem, can't help by trying to fix it. And therefore, he would reach out to government authorities and propose solutions, ideas on how the situation can be improved. But instead of accepting or listening to a peaceful scholars' opinions, and instead the government had sentenced my father to life and also convicted him on the dubious charge of separatism. The last time I saw my father was 2013, February 2nd, and that was the time when he was invited by Indiana University as a visiting scholar, and I was planning to come with my father to the U.S. just for a month to help him settle down, but we were separated at the airport, and that was the last time I saw him. 11 months after that separation at the airport, he was officially arrested. And since 2017, and also as Adam said, the start of all those camps, so-called re-education camps, concentration camps, labor camps, whatever you call it, since 2017, when mass number of camp started to appear, I have lost contact, any information of my father. Family visits is no longer allowed. We don't know what is my father's current condition, and we don't know if he's still being held in the same prison. We don't know if he's even alive.
Johar. Just briefly, and Johar, you touched on it already, but Akira, what brought you to the United States? So how have you ended up in the United States? And well, let's start there. And what's your situation in the United States too?
Uh, Thank you so much for asking. So I came to the United States with F1 visa after I finished my undergraduate degrees in Beijing, China. When I was studying on my undergraduate degrees, my mother always encouraged me to pursue advanced degree. I asked her like, what should I do after after the graduations? Instead of saying that you should get a job or you should get married, she said, "You are young. You should like you are young. You have many potentials. You need to see the world. You need to pursue advanced degree. You need to read more books and gain more knowledge when you are young. Because once you get older, there might be a fewer chance. So I will support you. I will unconditionally support you." So that encouraged me to prepare for the GMAT examination, TOEFL examination when I was studying in Beijing. After I finished my undergraduate degree, I came to the United States to pursue my master's degrees, and so my life in the United States just started since the 2015 June.
And your mother was here, wasn't she, for a while in the United States?
Yes.
Yeah.
After half years, I arrived at the United States. My mother came here as a visiting scholars in the same school in the University of Washington. That 6 months is the last period of time I spent with my mother's. She could have transferred to a better school, but she just wanted to spend more time with me and just offer more support. So she applied for the University of Washington. We spent almost 6 months here in the Seattle's, and we went to the library together. We cooked together. After her work and after my study, we went for a walk together. That is the last happiest moment of my life. Last happiest moment in my life.
And Johar, you.
As I mentioned earlier, briefly, that I wasn't planning to come to the United States at all. I didn't even speak English. In 2013, when my father was invited as a visiting scholar, I was already a freshman student in college. My major was Arabic, and never expected that. Now, as you can see, I am still in America, on the other side of the world, apart from my family, and yeah, never gone back to China once. And I have to be honest, I don't think anything positive will happen if I go back. Um, when that was the last time I was able to see my father. When after he was arrested at the airport, he was released at home after 3 days and put under house arrest for almost 11 months. And during that 11 month, I used to Skype with my father every single day, not even missing a day. And I believe that that was the best thing I have ever done. I used to, my father and I, we used to Skype at least twice to 3 times a day just to check up on each other and see if each other are safe. And just like we would have regular father-daughter conversations, and my father would ask me, what are you wearing to school? What did you learn at school? Who did you meet at school? And we try not to touch on those sad topics until couple months prior to his detention. My father during one of our Skype call, he said, "Daddy might something might happen to Daddy, and if I think it would be great if you create social media accounts, and Daddy have friends all over the world, all around the world. I have never met most of them, but they will help you. And you need to study hard. You need to stay strong." And at that point, I didn't want to accept the fact, and I still kept hope. And I thought, I still believed nothing bad would happen. But January 14th, 2014, my father was taken away from our apartment in Beijing in front of my two little brothers. One of them was 4 years old, the other one was 7. The older one was deeply traumatized that he had heart issues after a few months. And the day before he was officially taken away from our apartment was actually my last time spoke to him, that I spoke to him, because we kept communicating with each other every single day. And since he was arrested, I was never able to communicate with him again. I did try to send a letter to him through his lawyer when he was first arrested. And my father said, "Study hard and be strong." And he always, always told me to be a strong girl. And I remember the last sentence he told me when we were being separated at the airport. He said, "Don't cry. Don't let other people think little girls are weak." And that's something my father would usually say.
We're getting some questions in the Q&A. I want to just take one more. I'll ask Akita actually, because to follow up with what Johar was saying. And Akita, you mentioned that you would talk about why your mother was, or why she was detained, or why you believe she was detained. Johar obviously just explained what her father. What's your understanding of why she was detained?
First off, when my mother was first detained, I kept silence for a while because I have no clues what's going on, and I was so naive at that times, and I don't know much about the persecutions we as a whole nation has been going through for decades. I rarely read any political news, and I stay too much away from the politics. So when during that time, before my mother's detained, I already heard about some news about the principal of the Xinjiang University was detained, and this person mother was detained. I was heard several random news about those horrible things, and I was a little bit scary about this would happen to my family, but I still have I was being too much positive. So when my mother was detained, I had no clue. I don't even know whether I should freak out or stay hopeful, because I don't know what's going on. I didn't know what's going on tomorrow. Maybe my mother just show up, say hi, or maybe she disappeared forever. I have no clues, and I stay silent at the beginning, thinking maybe after several months, maybe after Chinese government confirmed that my mothers would not cause any dangers to the China state, they would, and then after they couldn't find any evidence about my mother committing any crimes, my mothers would be released. And after a long period of times, after I read all of the persecutions that the Uyghur has been going through for decades, after I witnessed the atrocity committed by the Chinese government in recent years, I lost hope for the Chinese governments. And at that time, I realized this is not about what Chinese governments do. The reason the Chinese government detaining my mother is not about they suspect my mother's of committing crimes, or they wanted to investigate and make sure my mother's not committing crimes. It's because this is Uyghurs are going through a systematic, like they wanted to systematically destroy Uyghurs nations. That is why they wanted to systematically detain and imprison and destroys the Uyghur intellectual scholars, because they wanted to cut the roots of the Uyghur. They wanted to destroy Uyghur cultures by imprisoning and vanishing all of the Uyghur intellectuals, all of the Uyghur scholars, especially like my mother, who has done so much to preserving the Uyghur cultures. I began to lose all of the hopes for the Chinese government, and think this is a atrocity. This is an unprecedented atrocity the Chinese government is systematically embarking on.
Thank you. And that, that leads into some questions that are in the Q&A that are all related, and part of that has to do with what to do about that. And the questions from particularly focused on government, on the U.S. So, so how do we envision other states, especially the U.S., this is a question in the chat, doing to hold China accountable for the genocide, given China's economic dominance within the international system? Is it military intervention? Is it sanctions? Is it something else? Another question that kind of follows along that path, just to keep it going, is does this perhaps change of administration in the U.S. Going to help or affect, or how is it going to affect it? Maybe is a better way of asking the question. So first, of what can be done, do you think, from, what does China respond to from the U.S.?
I am not a policy expert. I do have a political science degree, undergrad degree, but just based on my personal experience for the past few years with my campaigning experiences, and I believe that with the current China, there is only one solution, which what people, I think it's an American saying, hit them where it hurts. Is it, if I'm saying it correctly? And which I believe for current China, it will be money, which is hurting them in financially or economically, economically. So as some of you may know that 84% of the global cotton production is from the Uyghur region. China. 84% of the cotton production of China is from the Uyghur region, and that accounts to 22% of the world cotton production. And that's just simple math. That's 1 out of 5 garment industry that is entering the US or to the world is tainted with forced labor, because now there are over 1 to 1.8 million Uyghurs have been going through vocational training and sent to forced labor camps. That is why I do believe that putting sanctions on China over, let's say, goods that are made or produced in the Uyghur region, or even outside of the Uyghur region, since there is labor transferring program that is happening in China, where Uyghurs all have been sent to different provinces and cities in China to work in factories for very low wages, or even no payment at all under very crucial environments. So I do believe that sanctions would be a useful and a very efficient way to help improving the forced labor issue for the Uyghurs. And I believe one of the reasons that those forced labor camps even existed is because China would like to use it as of course, free labor, or almost free or cheap labors. And if international brands and corporates stop working in the Uyghur region, stop sourcing from those from the region, stop sourcing products that are made by the Uyghurs, and if U.S. or other governments they can start putting sanctions on goods, such as the recent WRO that were released by the CBP. that all cottons and tomatoes that are made in the Uyghur region are going to be banned and not allowed to be entered in the US. And I do recommend other governments can follow suit and propose similar sanctions or orders, because I do think it's in a very effective way. But what matters the most is not the sanctioning, it's how the enforcement. Normally governments, from what I've been seeing, governments would make a genocide declaration or would raise conversation about this Uyghur issue, but when it comes to actual enforcement, they often hesitate. I do understand that, because if I'm a president of a country, I would care about my country's own economic growth. So I totally understand, but I do suggest people should value humanitarian crisis, humanity over monetary gain. And I do believe that I'm sure countries might be afraid of retaliation from China. But if one country is afraid of, China might not be afraid of one country's sanction, two countries sanction, but if all the countries are united and working together on the specific matter, it's not to boycott China, and it's not to cause problems for China, it's to help China to fix its own mistakes. And I do believe positive outcomes will come. Sorry, I talked too much.
That's fine, Joe. Let me ask you a quick follow-up that actually comes from that just came in from the chat, and Akita, feel free to jump in too. The question asked, do you think it's an issue that among US politicians that some of the most vocal advocates of Uyghur human rights have also been some of the most controversial US politicians, that have been people that have been considered to be, very conservative, very far right, and have not been necessarily politicians in the mainstream?
Akita, would you like to answer this question? If you don't have a split, I can go ahead. I would just want, because I just talked a lot earlier. So
I can follow up. You can do first.
I personally believe no matter who you are, doesn't matter who's a president, who's a politician, who runs the administration, it doesn't matter what opinions you hold. What's more important is the Uyghurs are still suffering, and this situation has not been fixed yet. And doesn't matter what ethnic background you're from, what religious background you're from, doesn't matter what your identity is. We all have the responsibility to speak up for each other. And even if I'm not Uyghur, I think it is my duty to speak up for, let's say for example, what is happening in Myanmar, what is happening in Yemen, all these. I do think we all have the responsibility to care for each other, because we're all humans in the end of the day. So no, I don't think it's a problem that if it's you're far left or far right. I do think that we all share the same responsibility, which is care for each other, and that's what make us a good people.
Well, let me ask this other question, Akita. We'll start with you on this one. It's kind of an interesting question. This is from somebody, again, on the Q&A, who's identified as being Uyghur and says, I used to have many Han Chinese friends, but after 2017, I lost contact with many of them due to various reasons. One main reason is that some of those Han friends have expressed that the re-education camps are a good thing. I wonder if you have encountered similar situations, again, of Han friends defending the re-education camps. And what would you say to a Han Chinese friend who thinks that it is right for the government to detain Uyghurs for who they are? Akita, why don't we start with you, and then Johar, if you have some thoughts on it as well.
Yes, I would like to answer this question. So from my own experiences, I got several responses when it comes to these issues. When I talk about the re-education camps, about my mother's detained, so I become an activist. The first response is, it's like, oh, re-education camp, it's not existed. You are just making something up. How could there is still re-education camp in the world? This is something that is created by the Western media. This is the time I talked to our friends about my mother's might ended up in the re-education camps before my mother's news came out. So this is the first response I got. Another response I might got from the Han Chinese friends is they might already heard about re-education camp issues, but they might answers like, this is actually this is the only way that the governments can maintain the stability of the Xinjiang regions, or this is like by like it's like the main point. They might not say directly, but the main point behind their response is by sacrificing small groups of peoples in the re-education camps, we can maintain a happy, successfully, mainly like we all know this is like mainly Han Chinese happy societies if we do that ways. And they might like my point is they might respond in a way that is be supportive of the Chinese government's approach, but not all the Chinese are like that. Some of my really good Chinese friends, when they heard about the news about the re-education camp, they're like, I am so sorry. I have no idea why our government done something like that. I wish the atrocity of I wish the I wish the suffering of Uyghurs ends soon. I wish that you can see your mothers, all the others Uyghurs can see their loved ones. So, so right now, so like for all the nations, all the ethnic groups, they have people like they have different people like people holding different opinions, but our job is to tell the truth. Like so that's why after I became an activist, after I opened the Twitter's accounts, I advocated in all of the language I can. Sometimes I advocated in English, sometimes I advocated in Chinese. It doesn't matter whether you understand or whether you support or whether it doesn't like it's your job to differentiate what is good or bad. It's your job to become a human, but it is my job to tell the truth and advocate it about what is going on and encourage all of the people, whether you are Uyghurs, whether you are others nation, whether you are like Americans, whether you are Chinese, to 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 fight against fight against injustice, the justice, but it's my job to advocate it. And my last, I already talked too much or under too fast. I am a little bit excited being so like excited about these issues, but the last few suggestions I wanted to offer to my Chinese friends is first of all, the like please don't think this as a propaganda. Please don't think all of the bad news about China, like re-education camp, genocide of Uyghur, as a propaganda created by the Western media. It is the true atrocity. This is the true atrocity, true tragedy that is happening. The reasons why you think that way is because your government, your state media only want you to see what they want you to see. If they wanted to hide the fact, hide what they are doing, they will create it some things like Uyghurs are living happy. They might there is no such a like concentration camp existed. Whether Western media are like attracting us by creating this issue, it is not. Please do more research on that. Second, if you decided to choose to stand on justice and stand on justice, and please just support your Uyghur friends by, if you can't, maybe shares the news, shares what's happening about on the Uyghurs on your social medias. If you can, please just anonymously write letters to your local officials in your countries to inform them about the issues. And if you are afraid of doing those steps, because fearing of the retaliation from the Chinese governments, you can simply just offer a hug or supportive words to your Uyghur friends and tell your Han Chinese friends around you what's happening on Uyghurs, and maybe correct the bias that some Han Chinese have toward this issue.
Just adding a little more to what Akida said, and um, so responding to the question directly, that the question was, some people have expressed that re-education camp was a good thing. Um, in my opinion, we're all humans. I believe most uh, our roots are all genuine and good, but those people who think it was a good thing, the one of the possible reason could be they think it is a good thing after watching Chinese propaganda videos, which portray it as a positive solution to fix Uyghur problems, and a lot of people do believe what the Chinese government have been saying, that those people who are locked up, who can actually go home freely, and they went in to get free education, and those people going there is just to learn how to improve their job skills, and there are people actually genuinely believe that this is true. I'm embarrassed to say that I was one of those people when I was younger, when I was a teenager, when I was still in China. I believed whatever the CCTV said. CCTV is the Chinese state-backed media, and I believed, oh, since it's the official news, it must be the truth. But in fact, that's not always the case. And after coming to the US, when I had access to all sorts of media, it doesn't matter if it's left views or right views, at least I had access to all of them. But in China, you only have one voice. In my opinion, normal society does not only have one voice, because people are born to be different, and we're born to have different opinions. And but in China, all the news, it's made to shape people to think in the exact same way. So I am not surprised if there are lots of Han Chinese inside China would think, or even outside of China, people who believe that those camps are for Uyghur people's own good, and that is why I believe what we need to do is to provide with them with actual evidence and more resources, more information, since you'll be surprised, a lot of Chinese friends I have until now, they do not use any Western social media or Western search engines. They still use Baidu instead of Google, even though on Baidu everything is sanctioned or everything is censored. A lot of things would be blocked, but they still would be more comfortable with um, uh, using Baidu, which I understand. And that is why I encourage people to, talk to them calmly instead of accusing them for thinking in certain ways, and try to persuade them with actual facts, and make sure to use the right sources, and fact check your sources too, because it could hurt eventually. If you sometimes it could hurt the Uyghur cause even more if you just sometimes if you don't verify your source, and it could use against the Uyghurs. It could be used against the Uyghurs in the end, in the end. So I really do encourage, if there are so many credible accounts of refugees stories that you can share, and it is quite sad, and there are documentaries, and I am also personally working on a documentary film where my film crew had flew to 6, 7 different countries, including China, including and they even went into the Uyghur region to have film footages, and we have done tons of interviews with camp survivors, with family members of former detainees. So I really do insist on people keep trying, do not lose hope, do not lose hope in humanity. Let's be positive.
Thank you. We're getting a few questions, kind of shifting a little bit. I'm trying to be mindful of the time too. About some advocacy, some questions from people who are doing advocacy, who want to help with advocacy, and support it. And so there is, one question is about types of advocacy that you've seen, or that you've seen be successful, or that even excites you, that you think that this is really type of advocacy that's moving in the right direction. And a related question is that some people, many people here are concerned that the advocacy they might do from here might bring harm to people who are in the country or the family members, be it your family members that are still there, or family members of other Uyghur scholars in this case. And um, so what kind of advocacy do you think is effective and that you've seen exciting, but also what are the risks that go on, particularly for family members, especially in such a heavily surveilled country where and everything?
So this question, I'm not sure if I understand, like if I understand these questions correctly, or if I can make to the point, but I will try to answer that. So in terms of the advocacy, like first of all, like let's talk about whether this advocacy would be harmful or non-harmful. When I first started my activisms, or when I first started to do something for my mothers, I care a little bit too much about whether these actions would be harmful or in the Chinese government's eye, and like I should be careful about that. I should be careful about this. So now what I'm careful is, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing something that a true human, a good humans will do? So instead of worrying about this advocacy will piss Chinese government off, I will just think about whether I'm doing a good things or not. So I will just speak out every truth I have. I will just attend every event that people can be educated, that I can raise more awareness on my mother issue, on my Uyghur issues, and so came to the point. My point right now is all of the advocacy that is that doesn't include any discriminations towards any ethnic groups, that is telling the truth, that is raising the awareness on the current issues, that is the advocacy that is worth doing.
I agree with Akida that telling the truth could be one of the best campaign or advocacy tactics. And I also believe that there is no one single best way for campaigning or for activism. I personally believe that all advocacy work is the best. They're all are great, and you will never know in different cases. You will never know which activity that you did for activism could could cause a change. And in fact, I think all these activities that you do together can pile up and make a change. It could happen today, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen in 10 years, but eventually you will see the change. It's just a matter of time. And what matters the most for me is the consistency. I do see people would speak up on this issue, but often after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, after a year, people would give up because they don't see a positive change and they get disappointed, or they move on to another issue. Not that I think another issue is less important. I personally believe that every humanitarian issue, it's very important, and it is that I do believe that we should, as I mentioned earlier, it's our responsibility to care for each other. It doesn't matter which ethnic background you're from, which religious group you're from, which gender group you're from. So what I suggest is consistency. People, they can constantly focusing on the issue that you care about, and constantly doesn't matter which tactic, which way you choose, just continue and do not give up. And I forgot what was the second part of the question.
It was about just the risk to people,
Oh yes.
Still in China.
That's actually one of my fear every single day. Until today, until at this moment, speaking with you right now, make me have sometimes would have goosebumps or make me feel cold, because I am afraid what if I said this? What if this thing that I said would cause this damage or that damage to my family? What happened? Will they take away my brother's rights to go to school because they did it with me before they tried to threaten my student status with my father? And will they do that to me? Will to my brothers? Will they take away my stepmom's job? Will they harm my other family relatives? Will they do this? Well, it's I'm in constant fear, but I have come this far. I didn't come this far just to come this far to stop. I will continue, and I am a very greedy person. I haven't seen a positive change yet. I am not going to stop until I get what I want. Yeah.
So as a quick follow-up, and then I think we have, I mean, there's a lot of questions, but just because of time, let me try to go with 2 more questions after this. But as part of this, you've also put yourselves at some risk with this as well. So now, obviously, there is, you both sort of indicated that you probably are not going to be going back to China, or able to go back to China safely in the near future. Anyhow, have you, Akita, you talked a little bit about it, but feel free to jump in. Do you worry, at what point did you decide the risk, I had no choice but to take this risk for yourself?
For when I first started, instead of thinking about me, I think more about like whether my actions would bring risk to my parents or my like this, like whether it's like maybe my mothers would suffer more, or maybe my fathers would be detained too. So that's why I speak out. That's also why I was silenced at the beginnings. So the reason why I started to speak out, and I think that's a good time, is the first is I lost the hope of the Chinese government to unconditionally release my mothers, and I also afraid that is if I don't speak up, if I don't speak, if I just stay silent, and if my mother ended up perish or just like I don't want to put it this way, but if my mother's just die or just like have any serious problems in the concentration camp or prisons wherever she is currently in, I would not forgive. I won't forgive myself forever. So that's why I decided to speak out. And I also think since I am the only, like in my family, I am the only family member that is currently living in a foreign country, in a foreign country, I had this responsibility to speak up for my mother.
And I agree with what everything Africa just said, that I also had that thought, if I remain silent because I was afraid, I know for a fact that I will feel the regret every single minute in the rest of my life. And also, yeah, I had times that I was worried for my own safety, and well, as what my father said, well, every problem has a solution, and when you see a problem, you need to fix it or try to come up with a solution. So I did imagine myself being kidnapped one day, or well, I practice judo and jujitsu, and that's my solution. And I constantly work out, so I'm a very strong woman. So and I try my best to be safe, and I am very careful with my my words as well. And I, as long as I don't do anything illegal, then should be fine.
And just to clarify, your family is all still in China. You're also the only family member that's here. Okay, I want to ask 2 more questions that came out of the group, and then we will thank you for being here. And Claire, I'm going to ask you to come in on this question too, and this comes from Louisa Grieve at UHRP. And the question is, what is the responsibility of American universities and scholars who have cooperation with the Chinese Ministry of Education at a time when so many Uyghur and Kazakh university professors and teachers are victims of a genocide? For example, should they do the same thing as the clothing companies, cut off ties with the ministry that is complicit in genocide? And obviously, Claire, you might be able to help us with the SAR, some thoughts from the SAR position, but also, we should not forget that we have the daughters of two scholars here who are, who very much were persecuted in that same context.
I'm happy to start. I mean, I don't think that there's a clear answer. However, I would say that in our experience, it's better to keep a door open for conversation to ensure that you have the ability to ask questions, that ask government officials why, give them an opportunity to explain, even if you think you know the answer, even if we are disappointed with the answer, but to maintain an opportunity to ask questions and maintain dialogue is incredibly important. So in general, and I'm sure there are exceptions, in general, we find that boycotts and similar actions are less useful because they don't allow you to have a dialogue about an issue. That being said, this is an incredibly difficult and severe situation, and people's lives are at stake. And so I can see where some nuance in that strategy would be necessary. However, I think those who do have relationships with government officials in China should, before choosing to cut any ties, ask them, why are you doing this? And please stop. And so using that relationship to your advantage is, where possible, incredibly important. But I would love to hear from Jahar and Akita as well on that question.
I really agree with what Claire said, that first of all, I think the US education system is highly valued in China. That is why there's so many parents in China have been trying to send their kids to US to seek for higher education. And therefore, I think there's leverage there. And if you completely cut off and, let's say, boycott it, then you can't ask the Chinese government to do anything. That is why as Claire said, that then there won't be any room for discussion. And I think, well, my father, his key is always dialogue. He always promotes dialogue, and I do believe the value, the importance of dialogue. And I think completely cutting off any ties with China throughout the education system might do more harm than good. Yeah, that's just my personal perspective.
Did you have something to add, Akita? I'm sorry.
Yes, I can add some for what's the institutions university can do. So one of the things, like I live near the University of Washington, and I really hope that the schools can host more like events about the Uyghur issues and educated people on the campus, educated the officials in the schools about what is happening to Uyghurs. If this is happening, I will leave all of my works and just jump into the campus to be a speakers. But I didn't see this kind of activity going on in the campus, and I hope that the student associations in the campus can also host more events about the Uyghurs issue, like this crisis, and like educating, like take this responsibility, but I still didn't see this actions going on. And so what I suggest is, except all of the things that Jeff Harris and Claire's talk about, one thing to add is the institutions might might host more events to educated people on what's happening. And this is also one of the ways to pressure the Chinese government to stop these atrocities. And also we cannot blame, I don't want to blame this on the university itself. I think I also need to take the responsibility. So my responsibility right now is, since the institutions or student associations didn't take this responsibility, haven't taken this responsibility, I will send a letter to the student associations. I will contact the universities, and I will ask them, and like, hey, this is what's going on Uyghurs. Could you create events related to that related? Could you host an event to educate people on what's going on? And I hope all the people who wanted to help in Uyghur issues can also do that.
Yeah, thanks. And you've both been so generous with your time to so many, I know, institutions and classes to help to help keep this conversation going and the dialogue going and keeping it in the air. I want to close with there's a lot of variations of this question I'm going to ask, and the simple one is, how do you stay hopeful? How do you you know, how do you what do you hope for as an imagined world? How do you keep believing it will get there? There's yeah, I won't read you all the questions, but that's sort of there's several questions of just, how do you keep going? How do you stay hopeful when you see so much going on that must be discouraging, in the world and and with your families and everything.
I'd like to answer it with a little humor, and I guess it runs in my blood. The positivity just runs in my blood. I got it from my father. He was a very, very positive man, and the night after he was sentenced, I'm just sharing this little anecdote. The night after he's sentenced, when he was sentenced for life, my father told his lawyer, "Thank God, alhamdulillah, this is the first time I was able to have a good night's sleep after the 9 months of being arrested, the detention of 9 months." And the lawyer was shocked. You just got sentenced to life. Why were you able to sleep well? And my father's answer was, I wasn't given a death penalty. It's just life sentence. There's still hope. And my father's a very hopeful. He always keep himself very hopeful, and he always told me to be positive. Growing up, that's how he raised me. And I see someone asked in the questions that if do you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and would you continue advocating for Uyghurs even when your parents are released one day? I would like to answer to that. I do believe one day my father will be released, and I do believe Aqida's mother will be released one day. And I know that day will definitely come. It's a matter of time, and I will continue. I believe Aqida would. I'm not going to speak for you, but I myself, I will continue my fight until I see every single innocent Uyghur is released, and it is my duty as a human being.
I guess this is my turn to speak out about this, and my answer is similar to Jahel. So first of all, why I stay positive is because I need energy to fulfill my responsibilities. Right now, it's like I have a big rock on my shoulders, and I need to carry this rock on my own. So if I don't stay positive and if I don't stay energetic, I won't finish enough activism for my family members. And if I this is what Chinese government wants. They want me to devastate it, lose all of the hopes, and stop doing what I am doing. That is why it's like, aside from my activism, I also do something funny to cheer myself up, like watching a cat's videos or doing anything I want. And the reasons I'm still hopeful to the humanity is everything have two sides. Like we see the attack, we see the persecutions, we see some ignorance from peoples, but we also see some support, we some encouraging words, and even some people, they are not Uyghurs, but they are dedicating their times, like all of the panelists, all of the like people who are attending these events, they wanted to devote their times to care for an ethnic groups who is currently going through such a horrible thing. So I think I should focus my attention to those good peoples and believe in humanity. We believe in the humanity.
Thank you. And, for the hope and positivity that you both bring to this is so important for all of the people who you're talking about that that want to help and work who feel that it feels so impossible to some of us, and yet seeing your hope and your positivity and your belief in change, and the belief you'll see your parents, and the belief that I have that I will meet both of your parents, which I cannot wait to do, inspires people like me and all these other people that Akita mentioned to keep doing the work. I apologize for all the people we didn't get to questions to. We've been about an hour and 15 minutes now. So I think we're nearing the end, but I want to turn it back over to Betsy to close us out here.
Claire, did you have any final remarks before I close us out?
I just echo Adam and mainly want to say thank you to everybody for your time, and especially to you, Jahar and Akita, and Betsy and Adam, but to Jahar and Akita most especially for sharing these insights and helping us all do what we can to support you and your father and your mother, and because we want to help, and I'm sure that the many students and partners on this call feel the same way. So please do let us know when there's an opportunity for action.
And I just would like to add, Johar and Akita, you two are remarkable women, and just I'm so honored that you're here tonight, and you really lit the light of activism in me. And I think the word does need to be spread to a lot of people. I was talking to my family about it today, and they really knew very little. So I think we all, as much as we can, need to go out and talk about this issue. So I do hope we'll see you again soon, and you'll come back for another Talking in the Library. Johar's been here for a couple of them already. And to all of our participants, thank you so much for coming. And I hope you got as much out of this as we did. And please pay attention to the library website, where we'll have future events like this. Thank you so much, everybody.